Today is Monday, June 10th, 2024. This is the Tech Jawn episode 133. From Columbus, Ohio, I'm your host, Robb Dunewood.
And coming out of Philly, it's your girl, Tech Life Steph.
And out of Atlanta, this is Terrance Gaines, a.k.a. Brother Tech, a.k.a. Happy WWDC Day, everybody.
Definitely, man. I was watching you and Nika over on Daily Tech News Show today. So y'all been in front of microphones all day.
Not all day, just for the
Yeah.
afternoon. Been busy. So really haven't got too much done in the personal life today because it was watch the keynote at 1 o'clock and then jump on DTNS at 3 o'clock. And then now jump on our show for those listening live at 6 o'clock Eastern. So I've been busy.
All tech all the time. That's how we do.
Well, it's been a full day of tech, so we can go ahead and jump right into it. And let's talk about just what is going on at WWDC. So for those who don't know, that stands for Worldwide Developer Conference. That is Apple's big conference of the year where they announce a whole bunch of new stuff. And I actually watched that 1 o'clock keynote, all 1 hour, and what was about an hour and 40 minutes, hour and 45 minutes, somewhere in there. I actually watched all of it. And with the exception of a few corny parts in the middle, it actually was good news. I've said this consistently. Apple is the standard for these type of events. When you watch Microsoft do it, it's just not the same. When you watch Google do it, it's just not the same. They're okay, but Apple has kind of set the bar for how these things are supposed to go. And they try to get you a lot of information without making you fall asleep while you're getting it. So Terrance, can you just start breaking down some of the stuff that Apple announced today?
Yeah. So it is the Worldwide Developers Conference. So generally, the conference is more than just a keynote. It's like all week long of different presentations, different seminars, different classes that developers, if you are an Apple developer and you pay the annual subscription, you're actually developing via Mac, iPhone, whatever the case may be, this is your conference of the year. At the beginning of the conference, they always do the keynote, and in typical fashion, they announced all of the upcoming software for all the Apple products. So anything hardware like a Mac, iPad, iPhone, Apple Watch, all of the operating software that runs those, Apple announced all of their upcoming products that when they actually announce them for sale, when you get a new iPhone, whatever the case may be, typically in the fall is when those products will actually be available. But for this conference, they give everybody the what's coming in the software world as it relates to Apple. So probably the most waited for, if that's a word, anticipated is a better word, is the Apple's generative AI version. We've got all the other players have announced their stuff. OpenAI is a more popular one. Google Gemini, Microsoft Copilot, all these other ones. But everybody's like, all right, the game don't start until Apple gets in the game. So Apple finally announced their version of AI. And basically what they call it is Apple Intelligence. So they're kind of making a play on the AI. They're going to try to commandeer that and call it Apple Intelligence. And basically, without getting too much in the weeds, they've kind of broken down Apple's intelligence in 3 stages. The first one is on device. So all of the things that you can do as far as talking to, it's implemented into Siri. So when you invoke Siri, whether it be pressing a button or saying, "Hey Siri," whatever the case may be, the Siri animation is changed, and it gives you the impression that everything you say, you can actually use that to create a more personalized experience. It is unlike ChatGPT that has scraped the internet, is different than Copilot that has scraped the internet or learned from Microsoft and Windows PCs. The on-device version is using the data on your device. It's not pulling it from the internet. It's not integrating it with the internet. So anything that you are quote unquote training is pretty much your data. So all of your calendar events, all of your reminders, any sort of workflows that you've done with Apple Mail, pretty much mostly native apps. So you think of Mail, calendar, reminders, journal app, photos, phone calls, all that stuff is now being brought into this Apple Intelligence that helps you use your devices smarter. So Apple really didn't focus on how they built it and all the implications. They basically said, all right, we've got this new Apple Intelligence, and they went through the program and kind of showed you instances to where it can make your life better. For example, if I'm looking for a photo, for instance, I've got tons and tons of photos of my kids, and before Apple Intelligence, I had to be really, really specific on how I found a picture from 2003. I have to go through the years, 2003. I got to kind of remember where the time is. I can try to do location, but now with this new Apple Intelligence, I can invoke Siri and say, show me a picture of my daughter in the red swimsuit. And it'll dig through and it'll surface that picture of any of the pictures of my daughter wearing a red swimsuit. And then I can kind of use that to share to whatever the case may be. So think of Apple Intelligence as what you would assume intelligence on your device. So that's the first stage. The second stage is private cloud compute, which is what Apple uses to synchronize the data across your devices. Now, this is where Apple's like, yes, even though it's being stored on cloud servers, we, Apple, do not have access to your data. We're not sharing that data. We're not training off that data. We're not going to sell any of that data. We use your data that's lifted from your devices to synchronize across your Mac, across your iPad, across your Apple Watch, across all the other products and services that you particularly use, Apple TV, Apple Fitness, Apple Health, all those different things that integrate that don't necessarily live on your phone. Apple is saying, all right, this is the second phase is we use this data versus our servers. But again, we don't train on it. We don't sell it. We can't even see it. Right. And then the third stage of Apple Intelligence is what they are doing. If you want to pull in data from the internet, for instance, you want to learn how to give me the best margarita recipe. Apple has decided to partner with ChatGPT in the beginning. They mentioned in the story that they'll utilize more like Gemini, Copilot, whatever the case may be. But right now, as at the inception, we have partnered with ChatGPT to go to the internet and use all the data that ChatGPT and all their stuff is trained on to surface information that you can find on the web. So instead of you actually going into a Safari and typing in the search, you can invoke Siri and say, find me the best margarita recipe. It'll pull up and say, hey, we ain't got this on your phone. Do you want to search ChatGPT to surface this information? You got to explicitly say yes or no for it to then go out and find that information and then surface it to you. So those are kind of the three stages of the Apple Intelligence. And they made very, very clearly, very importantly said, look, this is private, it's secure. We've got these checks. We've got this third party group that's going to verify that all of our stuff is on the legit, on the up and up. So you can be assured that any information you use, we as an Apple are not storing it on our servers. We're not trying to train other people's phones on it. We're not even selling your data to somebody else to try to learn on. This is all your device, and we're going to keep it safe and secure. So that's kind of like the highlights. But basically, it's like AI on your phone that learns you. Instead of it learning the internet, instead of it learning YouTube, instead of it learning, reading every book since inception, it's taking the information that you supplied to your phone, like all that information is going to utilize that information to create a better experience. So that was kind of the highlight of just the Apple AI part.
So,
of course, they talked
yeah,
about more
yeah,
stuff.
I want to just dig into that for a second and to just reiterate this. The Apple Intelligence that is running on your phone is basically their generative AI that they built that runs on your device, and it is just an AI for your data, your information.
Right.
Want to be real specific of that, because in some of the things that I've been looking at today, and then even before today with many of the rumors that have come out, is that Apple, and I want to get your take on this, Terrance, with you being as deep into this, as you are, and definitely your take as well, Steph, is that Apple is seriously behind the likes of OpenAI or Microsoft or even Google, who is behind those two as far as what they can actually do with AI. So one of the reasons they aren't doing all of the stuff you can do on the internet and are using OpenAI is just because they're just not there yet. They don't have the capability to do that. Is there any
And I
truth
don't
to
even
that?
get the impression that they want to. I think
Yeah,
Apple
yeah.
is like, we don't want to catch up, quote unquote, with OpenAI and Gemini and Copilot by scraping the internet. Our version, our way we're going to use generative AI, and they've made a point to say we've always used large language models. We've always been using,
Mhm.
intelligence as far as surfacing information. You think of like Siri can like surface information depending on what type of screens you use. Apple, from what I understood on this one, now, of course, Apple can change as the wind blows, but based on what their announcement was today, is like, we ain't even going to try to do any of that stuff because we have years and years and years of personal data on your device. So we are going to figure out how we can take that data and figure out how to make a better experience because, of course, Apple is a hardware company first.
That's what
They
I
want to
was gonna
sell them.
say.
They need to sell them phones.
Apple's a
So
device
right,
manufacturer. They
right. So
don't give a fuck about it. I ain't gonna say they don't give a fuck about it, but there's other people already doing that.
right.
OpenAI is very well funded,
Hmm.
and they're already doing that. So why would they make the investment in reinventing that wheel when they could? I mean, I actually, I didn't get a chance to watch the keynote,
Hmm.
but your breakdown, Terrance, was really good in pretty much sort of outlining how Apple is basically creating a custom GPT for each
Per person. Yep.
individual
Yep.
iPhone user. I mean, that's
Hmm.
that's huge. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like people aren't going to think about it until they start using it, and number one realize how much better it is than that rabbit or that what was the other one, that
Humane
humane
AI.
that humane
Yep.
AI. And when they see how much better it's going to
Yeah.
work for them than those two things, then it's
Hmm.
going to be like, oh snap, this thing can do everything. It knows exactly what I want to be because it's watching what you do and
Hmm.
not trying to get you to do other things that you don't necessarily do normally. It's actually watching, paying attention to what you do and
Hmm.
how you use your device, and it's making that better. That, I mean, that's a flex. You know what I mean? That's chess, not checkers. Honestly, it's like for anybody that thought they were going to get one of those other devices, that rabbit or that humane AI pen, Apple was like, no, you're not. You're just going to keep your phone, and we're
Mhm.
going to make sure your phone can do those things. So
Right.
that's
Or
that's huge.
right. Or they like Rob was alluding to. A lot of people thought Apple was going to come up with a legit competitor, as say, all right, we as an Apple have scraped the internet,
They don't need to do
and
Mm-mm.
that.
we have
Mm-mm.
surfaced the
Mm-mm.
information that
Nope.
we think is
Nope.
pertinent to you. Apple's like, nah, we just gonna use the data we already got.
And that runs contrary
Right.
to their brand. A
Right.
part of Apple's brand is security. It always
Hmm.
has been. So why would they now start going out grabbing stuff that they ain't paid for, grabbing stuff,
That may
that
Yeah.
be not
that's
true.
right,
Yeah.
right,
Right.
right,
No.
misinformation like that. That's not
No.
even their brand. So
Yeah.
Right.
the fact that they took this tack and waited to do it. That's the thing, because I appreciate the fact that they didn't jump on the bandwagon and here's our AI tool that you can use. And like I said, Apple's not even in that business. They're a device company first and foremost, and they are figuring out ways to make their devices work better, which is what we pay for iPhones for. So
Yeah.
I'm not mad.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask the question because some folks are saying, well, Apple's doing it this way because it's the only way that they could do it. And
No.
maybe,
Apple is
but
a $1 trillion company.
Right. If they
exactly.
if they wanted to do it,
They are the
they could
second or
absolutely
third
do it.
biggest company on earth
Right.
as far as their market
Exactly.
cap is concerned. But what if I were Google, I would be very, very concerned. We heard through some of the court cases that Google has been going through that they dump up several large dump trucks worth of gold bullion to the spaceship every year. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, Google pays billions and billions and billions of dollars a year to Apple to be the default search engine on their
Mhm.
platform. And Apple made the decision years ago, that's not our business. We essentially are a marketing company that creates a lot of hardware, or a hardware company that has really, really good marketing. And our business is not to go out and scrape everything on the web and give you an interface into it.
Hmm.
especially not when we can get the companies that are really good at doing that, it giving us billions of dollars a year to just set them as the default in the operating system.
Hmm.
And
Duh.
I'm looking at what they're doing with OpenAI right now, very similar to that. We don't know what the terms of this deal is, but I would imagine that it is very lucrative for Apple that they
Sure,
have been
sure.
set
Hmm.
as the default, the default, uh, what is it, generative AI system for the cloud stuff is
Hmm.
OpenAI, who just
For the
happens to
internet
be
stuff.
one
Yeah,
of the biggest and baddest at it. Google is, I don't want to say they're struggling right now. They're definitely not struggling, but Google is behind OpenAI and Microsoft. They just are. If you look at it
sure.
and you take any type of blinders of like, I am a Google person, but I can look and see what you can do with ChatGPT and what you can do with Copilot and those things. Google says you can eventually do them, but you can't do them yet. So they are behind. But this is concerning. If I were a Google, if I were someone in Google running, running search, I would be concerned about this because we've been talking about for a while that generative AI could potentially replace search. And that is Google's business model. They make money doing a lot of things, but they make most of their money doing search. So if
Right.
you now just have where it used to be that people would just go on their iPhone and search Google for something, and now they're asking the chat GPT integration, even if that's just 5% of the time that happens
Hmm.
across the billion people who have iOS devices out there. That is significant amounts of money that Google is no longer making when they are paying Apple to be the default search on that platform. So,
Right. Well, it's just I look at it as missed out on potential money because again, Google still got to pay them to be in
right.
search. But again, like you mentioned, if I get more comfortable with Chat GPT through Siri or through Apple Intelligence, because if I ask Apple Intelligence a question and it surfaces Chat GPT, I'm going to click that button and it's going to surface the information versus me saying, nah, I don't like that. Let me close that. Let me open up Safari. Let me open up the Google app and then manually type in my search. Yeah, that could cut into potential money. But again, competition is good for the consumer. That this may force Google to step their game up because Apple did mention we're only going with ChatGPT right now. Later on,
Right.
based on however we negotiate, they'll add Copilot, they'll even add Gemini, but that means that that's going to be even a closer microscope on Google because if I'm comparing them to, and I do like a test, I do 3 tests. I do ChatGPT, I do Google Gemini, and then I do Microsoft Copilot. Let's just say, argument's sake, that all 3 of those, when I say give me the best margarita recipe, and it gives me 3 buttons. And I press the first button of Chat GPT and it gives me a dope recipe. And I press do it again. I do Copilot, it gives me a dope recipe. And then I do Gemini. Gemini's like, then that's
Would
when
you like a
Google will have a
martini?
problem. Right, right. That's when Google is going to have a problem. So, but they've got, as far as Apple's concerned, Google's got time to get their shit together before people start realizing, hey, I ain't got to use Google for nothing now. So they need to step their game up.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they do.
And you said this. The thing with pictures was impressive to me because that reminds me a lot of what you can do with Google Photos. And
Hmm.
I know a lot of iPhone users who just use Google Photos because Google Photos was just so good. You didn't have to know, oh wait, when did I take that picture? Where did I take that picture? Just show
Well,
me.
and also Apple now has basically magic erase.
Yeah.
They
I was
got
gonna say
they got cleanup.
I
Yeah,
was
they
waiting on
got
Rob to
cleanup.
finish the sentence.
Go
No, they
My bad. I ain't mean to cut you off.
no,
I'm gonna
no,
let you finish.
they have added a lot of little things in there to where, hey,
Mhm.
Hmm.
you can continue to use that app on here that's a third party app, or you could just use the stuff that's built into your phone that may or may not be, just as good. So,
Right.
so that's the AI. What else? Because we know they didn't spend an hour and 40 minutes just on AI. What else did they talk about, Terrance?
They didn't, but that's what kind of everybody was waiting on. Everything else is kind of per usual as far as WWDC. They announced all their new operating systems. So going down the line, they announced visionOS 2. There's a new visionOS 2 that pretty skim on the new features. Pretty much they have new hand gestures If you want to go to the
Mm.
home or go to the control panel,
I will say
they've
this
got
one
new
thing
gestures for that.
about the Vision Pro and Vision OS 2. I thought it was interesting. This moment was not lost on me in the first 20 seconds of the
Hmm.
keynote when they went to that cut scene when they're on the airplane or whatever, and you got a whole bunch of folks sitting on the plane doing what people would do sitting on a plane, and there's one person
Hmm.
wearing wearing the Vision OS,
Vision OS
and
goggles.
like a
Yeah.
question is asked, and then he turns and he looks, and they show the ridiculous looking
Eyes
eyes or
blink.
whatever, and then it went to something else and
Hmm.
jumping out the plane. But it's like it's cool that a company like Apple will actually make jokes, be self-deprecating, because clearly that was a moment. We're like, it's like, yeah, we got to make this better. Whereas I don't know that Microsoft has the sense of humor to do that, and Google definitely does not. So that was kind of cool to me when they started right off with Vision OS stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So they pretty much got Vision OS out of the way and announced Vision OS 2 with a couple of gestures, a couple other things. Spatial video photos will look better. Again, you have to take spatial videos and spatial photos in on an iPhone and on the right iPhone for that to do that. But if you check those boxes, you'll get better spatial video, spatial audio, spatial photos, not audio, spatial photos and videos from Vision OS 2. They talked about iOS 18, which is the newest iOS is going to come out in the fall. Probably the main thing about that was the customization. You can customize the home screen and you can
There's a
customize.
lot of aesthetic stuff
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah, yeah. So
iOS 18. I
you
was like,
can,
all right.
well, they're to be honest, they're catching up with Google. Google
Hmm.
for the longest has been able to change the color of the icons.
The
You can,
locations.
you can, right.
How long have you been using an iPhone?
Since they came out,
So here is one of the
since the
reasons
first one.
why I think that Apple is doing this. And Terrance, I want to get your take on this. Is that it's a big deal for Android users. We have pretty much always been able to significantly modify home screens. And now you're getting into the point to where, with the exception of iMessage, there's really no killer feature on an iPhone that if you don't get an equally high-end Samsung device or Motorola device or whatever device, but is an equally high-end Android phone, that you're not going to basically be able to do everything that you could do on that Android device as effectively as you could on the iPhone. So I think what they're doing now is that, okay, if we want to try to get some of these folks to come over from maybe the Galaxy S line, we have to give them something that they're used to, because it is jarring when you go from a platform to where I can literally make every change that I want to change. And I can make this icon this color and that icon that color and put this screen here and have all of my icons docked to the left, the right, the top, or the bottom, and do that. And then I go to a phone where I can't do that. It's kind of jarring. So I think that may be one of the reasons that Apple has finally come around. It's like, they're like, okay, it's time. This is how we get those people who are still on Android that we have not been able to court at this point.
Well, yeah, I would say they're not even courting Android users because people are pretty much in their camps. If they're Android, they're Android. If they're iPhone, they're iPhone. Ain't too many switching back and forth. I think it's
Not back
just
and forth, just from Android to iOS. It's still a thing.
Right.
It is still a thing.
but at any rate, just giving iOS users these additional features that Apple knows it can do. We know Apple can do it, but now it's just like, all right, now it's time, especially if they're going to use photos in like your home screen. Like before, you could use a photo in your lock screen, and then when you unlock your phone, you put it blurs the background or it puts another image in the background. Now, what you can do is use a lock screen photo as your home screen. And say, for instance, you've got a person like your kid or your parents or whatever the case may be, you can move the apps. If their head is like at the top, you can move the apps down so you can get a better background image, or vice versa. If there's something at the bottom, you can take the apps and move them to the top so you can kind of still see that background when before only thing you can see on an iPhone is all the apps, right?
Yeah, the only thing I thought was worthwhile from the iOS 18. I mean, I can appreciate all the, customization that's great for people that like to do that kind of thing. I'm not hating.
But you are.
Message
But go ahead.
but I am. Message scheduling,
Right.
that send later feature is dope.
Mhm.
I will definitely be using that. The fact that you can, schedule a text message to go out in the morning or, a couple days later, like happy birthday. Let me make sure I don't forget to send this message to this person. So I'm gonna schedule it. That's pretty dope. And I thought though, I while I like the app lock feature,
Hmm.
I feel like parents might get a little heartburn from that with their kids, because I mean there are already like photo vaults and
Hmm.
different types of
Hmm.
apps out there where kids hide things, and I just feel like this gives them an even easier
Well,
way
you can do both
to
now
to do that.
with
Yeah.
iOS 18. You can lock an app and you can
Hmm.
hide it, so
Right.
it's hidden past behind a password. Jury's out on whether or not screen time will give you the ability to disable that or not. Screen time, for those who don't know,
Right.
is Apple's kind of like device management controls for parents. I can create a password. I can go into screen time, use that password, which is different than the phone unlock, which is different than Face ID or Thumb ID. I can create a special passcode and I can go in and customize a lot of those settings. The jury is still out. They didn't make mention to that in the announcement today, that you parents specifically can
Yeah.
turn on and off that feature. I would
Because
assume so, but
that's
we'll
gonna
have
be
to
a
wait.
problem. That's gonna
Right.
be a problem. Yeah.
Stephanie mentioned the messages. Another cool thing about the messages is you can specify. And what I mean by that is if you're sending a text message, you can adjust for tone. So you can
Hmm.
italicize, you can underline,
I did
you can
appreciate that as well. Yeah.
you can bold specific words in a text message. You can add animations to a word instead of, like, for instance, one of my favorite things to do is when somebody's birthday and I know they got an iPhone, I put happy birthday, and then I can open up a separate field that'll add effects. Confetti will drop, balloons will
Hmm.
drop. Well, you can kind of do the same thing with individual words in messages. They can shake, they can jump, they can kind of do all these different things. So you have those customizations in messages. Another cool thing that Stephanie mentioned already is the photo cleanup tool, to where, you've seen all the commercials with Google with the magic eraser. If you got people in the background, same thing with Apple. You can circle that person or circle that object and it'll erase it out of the screen so you can get that crisp photo. Some of the other features in iOS 18, we mentioned password lock and hide. One thing that they just mentioned that they didn't show any sort of demonstration is RCS support. So
Did they
Hmm.
even say the
Hmm.
name RCS?
they did.
They
They
did.
did.
It was
Tim
quick.
Cook said it.
It was real
Yeah,
fast.
Tim Cook said it at
Like
the end.
we gonna talk about it,
Right.
but we gonna move on.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
in there, but
Yeah.
don't ask no
Yeah.
questions.
So for all these messaging features with the new emojis, with the generative AI I didn't mention, you can generate emojis. Like if I wanted to generate an emoji of my face, and I can type in, do a picture of Terrance at the beach with a margarita in his hand, this generative AI can draw that. Now that we have RCS support, our fellow Android brethren can actually see that functionality versus getting some old basic stuff.
Well, now will they because they also one other thing from iOS 18 is the reactions. You can use any emoji you want for the reactions.
Hmm.
But with RCS integration now, will
With the tap
Android
back.
users actually be able to see their actual reactions
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in the same way that we see them?
They call them the tap back. That's the actual term for it. But yeah, with the RCS support, there's rich media versus using MMS and SMS, which is kind of old anyway. So they did make that announcement. They didn't, like I
Mhm.
said, they didn't show no demonstration. They didn't go in depth. It was like, yes, 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 you got
Listen,
RCS support.
they ain't about to have no Android phone up on that
No,
stage doing no
no,
tests with that
You
no,
got
stuff.
that
They
right.
ain't
no.
about to do
And then
that.
the other thing with Apple, and we've talked about this before, but what Apple is doing with RCS is they're supporting the actual spec. They're not supporting what Google has done to it.
Hmm.
So RCS does a lot of things, but the security, all of the, all of the extra stuff, all of the iMessage type stuff that you can do between Android devices, that is all running through Google. And Apple is not signed up to get down with that. They are running the actual spec, which is, so there's not security. You're still going to have green bubbles. So I'm assuming I'm not going to call out the bully in the middle of the screen that is wearing glasses, but is in the middle with the striped shirt on. I'm not going to call that person out, but they will still be able to bully whenever I send a text message and it shows up green, because it's still going to do that. So it's going to be better. Don't get me wrong. It will be much, much, much better, because you're now sending this stuff in high fidelity, so to speak, as my father would always call stuff that is better looking than the than low fidelity. But it is not iMessage. It is still something separate, and it's not going to be what I think a lot of people think it's going to be, to where now you're just doing iMessage on Android. That is not what is happening here.
Is that what people, side note, is that what people were looking for, or were they just looking for support for the features that iPhone and iMessage users have? Were people actually looking for iMessage on Android?
That's never going to happen.
Yes, that's never. You're right. That's never going to happen. And I think
that's I'm asking Rob. Were people who were like pushing for Apple to support RCS, were they thinking they were going to get iMessage on Android?
There's two types of people. So you have the people like us who are actually reading and understanding and getting really, really deep into what Apple or what Google or whatever tech company is actually doing. And I would imagine that many of the folks who are listening to this show are also aware of these things. And then you just got the regular folks who just have a phone that they like. And it's like, man, I wish I could do this. I wish I could join this group text. I wish I could do this thing from my Android device over to my iPhone. And iPhone users saying, I wish that these Android folks could do what we can do, and we don't have to do special stuff for them. So I think that folks are just hoping when they hear RCS, it's like, oh, it's going to, everything's just going to work now. And that's not what's happening. You are going to get bigger messages. You are going to get, some of these things that are running over data, but it's just a little better than MMS and SMS.
So it's not going to affect that awful group chat situation where it splits off a new group chat every time somebody with an Android phone responds to it.
No, it won't do that anymore. It'll support that. It'll be a true group
so everybody can listen. If that's all I get out of it, it's worth it just for that.
So those things do get better.
5 different group chats every time somebody responds to the group chat, like that's crazy. So if we can just get the one group chat and keep the one, I don't care about the green bubbles, I don't care about the blue bubbles. I always just hated that it would start a new chat when somebody responded. That was just because I'm already muting the group chat anyway, because I don't want to hear it. But I definitely don't want to hear 3 of them every time somebody responds. So that's huge.
That should absolutely be better.
That's worth the price of admission right there, honestly.
Yeah. So that's pretty much the gist of iOS. They got a couple other things like in Mail. It'll prioritize emails, kind of surface those to the top. It'll break out emails according to like some of the old Gmail type stuff, to where it's, purchases versus newsletters, that sort of thing. It'll kind of separate those out versus it all just being in one inbox. And that's pretty much the gist of iOS 18. There's a bunch of other stuff, but those are kind of like the high level things. iPadOS 18, everybody seems to love the calculator. Now they've now got a separate calculator app on iPad, which I was like, all right, if you like it, I guess. But Apple does this thing, and not only did it add a calculator app, but it added a new feature to it called Math Notes.
Math Notes is going to make it way too easy for people to cheat, man. Way too easy for people to cheat.
So basically what you can do is, if you have an Apple Pencil and you're in the Notes app, you can actually write out calculations. And then if you draw the equal sign, the Math Notes will automatically give you the answer. Like if you do like a tally, one of the things I saw that it will apply for me for is me and my wife, when we got a daughter that's turning 14 in like a week, right? So we pretty much, we tell her, all right, if you got a wish list, put your wish list of all the things that you may want in a note. And then she shares it with us. me and my wife take that note, and then we decide if we're going to buy something or we're going to add something. We put the price next to it because we want to make sure one kid ain't getting $200 worth of stuff and the other kid getting $450 worth of stuff. So we tally up how much it is. Well, with this math notes thing, once I hit if I've got a bunch of totals going top from bottom, I can draw that line at the bottom, and that does the equal sign, and it'll automatically tally all those items at the bottom in the math notes. So I thought that was pretty cool as an addition to like a regular, like a basic feature, like a calculator app. So Apple did their thing and Appleized the calculator app. Another thing in iOS 18, improved handwriting. So basically, if you have terrible handwriting and you write on the iPad with the Apple Pencil, and this is going with that machine learning / Apple intelligence, it'll actually learn your handwriting and, for lack of a better term, write it better, makes it more legible, and gives it more of a, almost like a font. You have your own personalized font. And then what's cool with it, if you copy something like in Safari and you paste it into that note that you've handwritten, it'll convert that handwritten text into that special font to where it'll just look like you wrote that when you actually copied and pasted into that note. So that was pretty cool with iPadOS 18. And then a couple other things they had, like I said, with watchOS 11, they've broken out the vitals. So with the Apple Watch, it monitors your heart rate and it monitors your heart beats per minute, all those things. Instead of seeing that into one app, they've kind of broken it out into a vitals app that'll give you all those diagnostics, which in my opinion, I think they're gearing up towards being able to offer glucose monitoring and or blood pressure monitoring. So again, this is just one step. They haven't done it yet, but I think once Apple figures that out for the watch, the reason why they've broken out this vitals app so they can add those vitals right into that vitals app. A couple other things with watchOS 11 is training load. So basically what training load is, if you're exercising, your watch can kind of see where you are. And if you're pushing harder, if you want to continue that push, it'll kind of keep track of that push. And now if you are working out way above your normal rate, it's like, hey, you may want to slow down a little bit. So it kind of tracks your
Calm
training
down.
load. Yeah. If you feel like you want to get above your PR or you need to tame it down a little bit, it's kind of tracking those vitals for you and gives you like a notification if you're going below, at, or above your normals, right? And that's pretty much it for watchOS 11. A couple other things in macOS Sequoia. That's the new name for the macOS operating system, is Sequoia. Sound like you were going to say something.
No, I'm gonna let you finish. Go
Oh yeah,
ahead.
pretty much the main thing in macOS Sequoia is the iPhone mirroring. So basically, how they presented it was, if you've got your iPhone and it's locked and it's in your bag and you're on your Mac and you need to do something on your phone, quote unquote, do something on your phone, this iPhone mirroring feature will enable you to pull up a window on your Mac and basically, quote unquote, control your iPhone. You can go through it, read the text messages, you can do whatever the case may be, while your phone is still locked and not in front of you, right? So the way I visualize it is, for me, I wouldn't necessarily use it specifically for that, but since I'm the tech help IT of the family, and I want to do like a walkthrough on how to do something, I can start up the screen mirroring, screen record my Mac, and actually walk through screen by screen on showing somebody how to do something.
Right.
You know,
I
press
thought the
stop.
mirroring was pretty cool.
Yeah,
I
that
was
was.
like, I mean, that is, I was just Saray asked if I had a feeling about Sequoia. I'm just wondering if Apple is going to do something about system data. That's all. Because
Uh,
god damn it, Apple, I literally just got this machine back. I'm on my iPad Air right now that I've had for roughly 2 months, maybe 3 months
your
now.
MacBook Air.
MacBook
My
Air,
MacBook Air. Yeah, what did
Yeah,
I say? Yeah,
iPad Air.
iPad
iPad
Air.
Air. Yeah, MacBook Air, that I've had for about 3 months now,
Mhm.
not longer than 3 months, that I just got back from the Genius Bar
Mhm.
because of that damn system data. I couldn't even, it had gotten to the point where I couldn't even fix it myself.
Uh-huh.
That's how much I had on the machine. Because at some point, no one can tell you what system data is, or how to get rid of it, or how to identify it, or how to find it in a library on your machine and know what to delete
Mhm.
to get rid of it,
Without crashing your computer.
without crashing your computer.
Right.
I called. She was like, "You're gonna have to reinstall your OS." I'm like, "Get the fuck." So I was like, "Fine, I'll reinstall my OS." I had not yet formatted my hard drive, my new hard drive. I hadn't formatted it yet.
Mhm.
So I plugged it in to do that.
Mhm.
I wanted to partition it to put a separate space for Time Machine on there, because I
Mhm.
was like, if I'm gonna do the recovery, the OS recovery, I want to make sure my shit's backed up and
Mhm.
do all the
A
things.
partition on your hard drive, the separate one.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Got you.
I didn't even have enough space on my Mac to do that shit. That's what, out of a terabyte hard drive,
Mhm.
it was 998 point something
That's
megabytes
crazy.
full.
What did you do?
750 megabytes of that was system data. I have no idea. No, 750 megabytes out of a terabyte was system data. I did everything every YouTube rabbit hole told me to do. I took stuff off, I deleted stuff. I put, like, we had that conversation the last time about what the cloud actually is and isn't.
Mhm.
Apple will let you sort of offload
What
some
about
things.
Dropbox and OneDrive? Use any of those?
I use OneDrive and iCloud.
Uh-huh.
Everything, there's nothing native living on my machine. Like,
Uh-huh.
nothing, everything's in iCloud, everything's in either iCloud or OneDrive. There
Mhm.
was a way to go in and, like I said, kind of,
Disconnect this server,
yeah, like
separate.
make
Yeah.
it offline.
Mhm.
You could put some stuff offline or whatever and get, none of that shit helped. Like,
Oh.
photos, I was taking software off the thing. Like, my like I said, everything else was only about 250 gigs.
Mhm.
Everything else besides system data,
Mhm.
photo, and I found tens of thousands of photos, music, everything else. Still can't tell me what it is. So now I've bricked my machine, because I can't back it up and I
Mhm.
can't do anything with it.
Mhm.
So I just made the appointment and took it in. They did an erase and reinstall,
Mhm.
which I would have just been doing the OS recovery, which would
Mhm.
just reinstall the OS. And it's fine. I mean, I'm back, obviously, but I had to pull out my backup PC for
Th
2 days, and
So did
it
they
just
say
makes no.
anything? Did the Genius people
he
say
he said, and I quote, "Wow, so you're gonna have to take care of this before you let it get this bad from now on."
that was his
That was that was a recommendation. Don't let it get this
like you
bad
did it on
no more.
purpose the
Right,
first
right.
yeah.
But because and I was
That's
talking to my
3
brother about
months.
this.
You just got this jump.
3
3
I
months.
just got that 3 months. And the whole thing was like, even, I was gonna, because I had been monitoring it,
Mhm.
because it was slowing my MacBook down. And
Mhm.
I'm like, and I'm going back in, looking at storage, 1 minute is, 300, gigs of system data. Next minute is 5. Literally, because I was like, okay, clearly I need to do something. And I was getting ready to do something. But when I tell you that joint jumped from 500 to 750 over the course of a user session,
Mhm.
like, I can't, I swear I can't tell you what I did. I mean, like I said, I use some very processor intensive programs. I mean, I
Right.
will say that. However, you know what I mean? I did what you suggested, Terrance, about, clearing the cache on Premiere Pro and,
Mhm.
all this other stuff. And I mean, I will probably at this point, you know, use my external hard drive as my hard drive for all things Adobe at this
Mhm.
point.
Mhm.
But I need to use Ecamm, I need to use, like, I still need to use all of these things.
Mhm.
I don't know that they are the culprit, because you don't know what's in system data and you
Right.
have no way of telling what's in system data.
That's so
So I have
strange
no,
though.
it's 750 gigs of system data in 3
That
months.
had to been like a ghost thing because I've got a M1 Pro MacBook Pro. It's got a terabyte, and I'm looking in the system data now, and I've only got 60 gigs of that system data. How on earth
I have
are
no
you
idea. I
750
have no
gigs?
idea. It
And
was that joint blew up in 3 months to 750 gigs of system
and at
data.
no time did you
Crazy.
say that you are like editing 8K video on this thing. So it's like
No, I mean,
there's
I
no,
am editing, but
but
it's
not
not
like
that.
that. So you
No,
shouldn't
no,
be generating that much system data. So it'll be interesting to
no.
see, does it happen again?
It
Uh,
will, because I need to put all that stuff back on my machine. I mean, everything's off. The only thing I've reinstalled so far is Chrome because I hate Safari. I fucking hate
so
Safari. So Chrome's on here, but that's it.
so
That's all
here's
I
a
have on the machine right now.
so here's a couple tips, and we'll keep it moving. But here's a couple tips. Make sure, like when you put OneDrive and you put Dropbox back on your or sign back into them,
Hmm.
make sure that you are manually selecting what specific files and folders that are actually stored on your computer. Because, like, again, a little known fact, when people think cloud storage, Dropbox,
Hmm.
OneDrive, they're not cloud storage, they're cloud sync. And
Right.
basically, what they do is they save a copy of all the files that you think are in OneDrive that are in Dropbox only. They save a copy on your machine and they
Hmm.
sync between the cloud and what's on
mhm,
your computer. If you delete something off your computer, it deletes it from the cloud. If you
Right.
delete something from the cloud, it synchronizes back down and deletes it off the computer. A lot of
Right.
people just assume that it's just in the cloud. No,
Right.
it's two copies and they sync
mhm.
between the two. So that's tip number one. Tip number two, you mentioned you doing anything Adobe on a external hard drive. That's dope. Make sure that you've got a high speed
Yeah.
external drive and you've got a high speed cable. You need a Thunderbolt
Mhm.
4 cable
Hmm.
and a hard drive that supports, I think it's 1,000 megabits per second or something like that.
Okay.
Samsung, I've got a Samsung T7, I think is the name of
Mhm.
it,
I've
that I
got the same one
use.
for the same
And
reason.
again, and I can't open, you use Adobe, I use Final Cut. If I try to open Final Cut and I don't have that hard drive showed up, plugged up, my Mac is like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know her.
Right, right. So I have to manually plug up my hard drive in order to see all of the projects
So
that
you
I'm
telling me
going.
this one's not going to work?
That may work too. I don't familiar. I'm not familiar with that one. But I would look and see with that particular model how many megabits per second that the
Right.
transfer data speed, and you
Right.
want at least 1,000.
At
I think is
least
what it
1,000. I
is.
mean, you can definitely go
Yeah,
higher than that, but because the T7s, well, I think we're like 1,300 or something like that.
yeah, I think so. And then you
Um,
want to make sure you have a high speed data cable. You
right.
don't want no regular
Okay.
old USB C cable. You want one that's Thunderbolt 3. I use Thunderbolt 4.
Right.
That's going to
Okay.
give the fastest because you're going to be essentially working off that hard drive and you don't want no lapses because
Right.
that's the negative. If everything's on your computer, it's quick and fast.
Absolutely.
Everything that's on the external hard drive, it's got to get from the hard drive to your computer. So you don't want
Hmm.
no missing links or,
And it's probably going to have to come through the dock because
you got everything else plugged up.
I need my camera going into my machine. And the dock is the other because there's only two
It's only
USB
two.
ports.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the negative of having
USB.
Air. I've got
Yeah,
a
it's only
MacBook Pro
two.
and it's got 4 joints, so that's like a main difference. But anyway, all that to say,
Little tech
hopefully,
support lesson.
right, right. Hopefully
No, what
for
I'm going to do is set a calendar reminder
mhm.
every quarter to reinstall my OS. That's what I'm gonna do.
It's got to be
That's
some
all I can
weird.
do.
It's
Yeah.
That's
got to
all
be
I
some
can
weird
do.
fluke
That's
because
all I can do,
750
man.
gigs of
It's
system
it's
data.
bananas. It's
Yeah,
Yeah.
bananas.
that's
You're
crazy.
not going to want to go through that because after you've done, you said every quarter. So if you go through this 4 times, it'll be 5 times in a year. You're gonna be at the end of the year.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I should have stayed on that day. At
I'm gonna
least
go right.
it's like I had my
I'm about
issues,
to
but I knew
get
how to
another
get
one
around
for
them.
real.
So
I'm about to get another one. I'm just like, this is some bullshit. Like
you
Apple really,
you scaring me
ugh, ugh.
because uh I'm on the same deal that you're on. My maintenance plan expires at the I want to say November of this year, and
What you got? The
I
XPS
got the XPS
15?
15. So
Mm-hmm.
because it expires, it's a 4-year maintenance plan on it. Because it expires this year, I have to get a new PC. I don't have to. I'm going to get a new PC because I always want to be in a situation where something happens to my computer. I don't have to try to figure it out. I can call somebody and they will ship me something, and I can literally just take my hard drive out, put it in the new one, and ship the machine back to them and let them worry about it. And I've done that, and it's absolutely worth it. So I just want to be covered. But the thing I've been thinking about was that I got this XPS because I thought that I was going to be traveling with it and doing all kind of stuff out in the field. And I can definitely count the number of times that I have taken it off this docking station that's sitting right here under my left hand. On, if not two hands and a foot, because it has not been 15 times that I've had this thing out of my office. So I'm saying if I've had it out of my office less than 15 times in 4 years, I probably don't have to have another laptop. I could get a desktop. So I will still continue to use this. I'm just thinking about getting I've been saying this for years now. I think I might get a Mac Mini and just mix it up and have something different. I have a Mac, but it is literally on the desk behind me, and it's just because it's not right here at my main area. I got to literally turn around, turn it on, and get up and running. I just don't use it. But if I had something that is right here in my main station, I might use it more. So I'm thinking about maybe getting a Mac Mini.
Don't let me dissuade you.
Yeah, that's
honestly.
what I'm saying. I'm
I
over
think,
here working the Mac just fine, and then here comes Stephanie with her scare story. It's like, you're scaring me, Stephanie.
Honestly, I think it may have just been a fluke. Hopefully, this reinstall will clean some stuff up, and maybe Sequoia. I'll be updating to Sequoia when it becomes available, and maybe that'll help something or take care of something. I don't know. I mean, obviously I'm not getting rid of my machine, so it is what it is, but I just thought that was just really not the best introduction to the ecosystem.
Right.
You were struggling
to have that happen 3 months in.
It wasn't even 3 months. It was 3 months till you got it fixed. You were struggling a month in. I was like,
when I unboxed the first Jawn, it was the keys was sticking in. I'm like, come on, Apple, what is going on?
What Mac store in Philly you going to?
Listen, it was the Jawn in the suburbs of all places. And I'm just like, these machines cost way too much money to be having problems like this. Like, come on now, come on.
So Terrance,
but yeah, like Stephanie said,
I was just going to ask.
Like Stephanie said, you going to say something?
I was going to say, is there any other Mac OS stuff that we need to?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Hopefully, macOS Sequoia comes out in the fall, and that fixes Stephanie's issues. But that's the only other thing.
Everybody's issues. System data is everybody's problem.
Yeah, but the only other thing is in audio. The only thing that was pretty cool is if you have AirPods Pro and you get a phone call and you've got announced messages on, and Siri say, you have an incoming call from Stephanie Humphreys. And if I'm in a meeting or if I'm on the train and I really don't want to I can't reach for my phone, I can shake my head yes or shake my head no. And if I shake my head no, Siri will send it to voicemail. If I shake my head yes, she'll go ahead and answer the phone call. So that's the only cool thing at anything related to Apple Audio or Apple Home is concerned.
They had the voice isolation too.
Yeah.
The AirPods. I thought that was pretty neat. I mean, I don't really do a whole lot of calls on my AirPods, but the fact that it took out all the background noise from the call I thought was
yeah. But you got to have AirPods Pro to do that. The AirPods 1 and then the AirPods 3, you got to have active noise cancellation in order to do that. So that's kind of like a very specific feature for a specific headset, which most people buy the AirPods Pro anyway. But yeah, but that's pretty much the two features from Audio and Home, and that was the extent of WWDC. There's a bunch of other stuff that they announced. One of the things that I like was, I don't know why, but now in iOS 18, they have integrated the Reminders app in the calendar. So if you have a reminder that you have a date and a time attached to it, when you open up the calendar app, it'll surface those reminders that you have a day and a time set to it. If you just put a reminder, it won't show up in the calendar. So any reminders that have a date and a time attached to them, they'll surface in the calendar app. So I don't have to switch back and forth. And that was like the main thing that I want. It's like, yo, can y'all do that, please? Because I use
I mean, that seems so obvious.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you have done that in the first place?
And I've fought against using third-party apps that utilize calendars and reminders, because like I know staying in the ecosystem is going to benefit me. So I'm just going to stay in the ecosystem. I'm going to fight the power until they finally give me what I want. And finally they did. So I can breathe a little bit easier about that. But that's pretty much it with WWDC.
That's a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not just that 1 hour and 45-minute keynote. There are other specific keynotes that they were having today. And I believe this conference does it go through Friday? Thursday,
Goes through
Friday?
Thursday or Friday. Like I said, this is the crowning event of WWDC, but WWDC is an entire conference. It's not just a keynote event. It's just the keynote kind of kicks off the conference. And most people who are involved in the conference past the keynote are active developers who are actively creating things using Apple products. This is their conference to go to. It's just the keynote is open to the public, and that's where they announce all the cool new outward features, but everything else about the conference is all under the hood for developers to work with.
Okay. So we spent a little bit of time on that, but I do want to hit one last tech story because I think, Steph, this one might be kind of in your wheelhouse. New York has passed legislation to ban addictive social media algorithms for kids, and I believe, what are they calling this thing? It's called the SAFE Act, the Stop Addictive Feeds Exploitation Act. That's better than some of the acronyms they get out there because they be struggling sometimes, try to get acronyms out here. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on this law. Now, it's been passed by the legislators. The governor still has to sign it, but the expectation is that she will. Get Governor Kathy Hochul. They say they believe that she will sign this. But I want to kind of get your thoughts on this. Do you think that this is a good thing? Do you think it will work to help teens, to help children?
No.
Right.
So there was a couple things that I pulled from this article. It says the Stop Addictive Feeds Exploitation for Kids Act will prohibit social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram from serving content to users under the age of 18 based on recommendation algorithms, meaning that instead social media companies will have to provide reverse chronological feeds for child users. So if I'm reading that correctly, that means that there won't be any more discovery for young people that use the app
Unless
because
they manually search for it.
Right. It's only going to be, they'll only get a chronological feed of the people that they follow. I don't know how you make that happen.
And I don't know how you make that happen just for 18-year-olds.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's my other point.
Right.
To do this at all, you're going to have to start age verification for social media.
Right.
And no one has figured out how to do that effectively or safely or with any level of security that would make it make sense. And, I think kids would still figure out how to get around it anyway. So I think, again, this is a lot of theater and a lot of politicians wanting to feel like they're doing something and want to be seen as doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And they throw all these words and these technical terms in there because people don't really know what that means anyway. So they
think it means something. And
right.
mean
they're protecting us from the algorithm. And it's just like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like that doesn't even make any sense. And I don't know a platform that is going to let you take discovery away from any segment of their user base. You know what I mean? So like that's part of how they make their money. That's the bread and butter right there as well, as discovery and letting people kind of float around on the platform and find things. So I just another attempt at something that they don't really have knowledge or understanding of. And I don't think it's going to work.
These platforms shouldn't be making money off the under 18 crowd anyway. So cool. We just gonna shut it down for them all. And the problem becomes solved by, I don't know of a 13 or 14-year-old that has their own phone that does not know how to figure, if I just add 10 years to my age, everything works.
Right.
I just got to remember, wasn't born in 2007. I was born in 1997.
My thing is, can I have it? I personally want the safe thing to where it only gives me
I always feed the chronological. I don't want to see the rest of that shit. I know. If parents spent as much time advocating for no phones in school, just that piece, if we could get that piece, no phones during school hours, the research is there that shows that makes a significant difference.
It's overwhelming. Overwhelming.
Overwhelmingly significant difference in how kids interact with these platforms, their mental health, how they learn, how they if we could just get the phones put away for the 7 hours they're in school. That's it. It would change the entire conversation that we're having about this right now. All this hand wringing could probably be put to bed, but it's the parents that aren't allowing
And,
that to happen.
and as a parent, I understand where parents are coming from, because we now live in a world where you got to worry about, is there a school
Yeah.
shoot, is there an active shooter situation going on at the school? I'm going to always be able to contact my baby. I know that that's how parents are thinking,
I
but
get it.
when you give them the device where you can
You
always
can't have it
contact
both ways.
them, and then some of these parents, y'all be tripping too. Why are you calling your child while they at school?
And they
You
in
know
math
they in
class.
math class. Well, they didn't have to answer.
Yeah.
What do you think is gonna happen if somebody
Yeah.
if my mama called me, I'm answering the phone. It doesn't matter what else is
Right.
happening. That's what's going to
Right.
happen first. Parents are always going to trump teachers. Well, I won't say always. They're usually going to trump teachers as far as authority goes. So if my mama calling me, I'm answering the phone. Hold on, Mr. So and so or Mrs. So and so. I got to talk to my mama right fast. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that I am now a proponent of not having these things in school, and I've just wondered,
Mhm.
would these devices where your kids have a watch or something like that for the ones that are younger, let's say pre-high school, they have a watch to where if you need to get them, you can you look on your wrist, you can see where they are. Does something like that actually help? And then with the high school students, just like,
No,
hey, your phone is going into sleep mode, or you going into detention if it's not, if you get caught having that thing on.
it won't help until, like Stephanie's getting to, parents actively are involved in their kids' upbringing. And
That's
what you're
it.
seeing is the parents want to blame the teacher, the parents
Mhm.
want to blame the school, the parents want to blame the
Social
phone,
social
the parents want to
media,
blame
it's
social
Facebook's
media,
fault.
and now they're looking to the politicians to say, "Help me."
Mhm. Mhm.
And if the politicians, like Stephanie said, were really about trying to solve the problem, they would create partnerships, they would create some sort of environment to where the politicians are not employing, imploring the parents to be more involved instead of trying to put a band-aid on it and catch the effect,
Right.
and
Right.
get at the social media companies, which again, I don't see how they can do, because America is so focused on free market, free market, free market. Well, this was what happens when
That's
you
it.
advocate for free market. These social media platforms are going to target their users, and their
Mm-hmm.
users are teenagers.
Right.
And then the way these content hoses work, like once you're following the people you like, you still have access to a fire hose of content. It's not
Mhm.
like because you've turned off the algorithm, quote unquote, that now they're not going to use the phone as much. If
Right.
you talk to a teenager right now, there's probably only about 10, 20, maybe 30 accounts that they really follow and
If
they
that
really
many.
love and they
Mm-hmm.
really pay attention to, so they're going to be following those accounts anyway.
Mhm.
And the way these content hoses work these days, they want, I think part of this bill, they wanted to be able to get to the bottom of the scroll or whatever. They don't want endless scrolling, but I'm like, but there is always going to be more content.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not turning off that content hose at this point, to where on any given day a kid can scroll to the end of Instagram
Yeah,
and be
right.
like, oh, there's no more, my the accounts I followed or haven't posted anything else, so I can turn my phone off for the day. That's never going to happen,
Right.
just because there's just too much content out there. So it's just, yeah,
We're trying
I
to
this
legislate good parenting. I've heard you say
yeah.
that for 3 years since we've been doing this show.
Listen,
You cannot
listen.
legislate good
you
parenting.
you can't do it. And as much as I want, to be brought to schools to talk to parents and stuff, like I've almost at the point where I feel bad. I mean, I still think I have messaging that resonates with young people. So I will always go and do that piece. But when I go talk to the parents, it really just becomes this broken record of, you got to be a better parent. Like, okay, I can show you how to set a privacy setting or enable a parental control, but at the end of the day, you just got to be a better parent. Like, I don't know what that looks like for your household, but you know, that's the solution. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It is what it is.
Yeah, Terrance and I have a mutual friend. His daughter just turned 14 or is about to turn 14. She's getting ready to go to high school. She just got her first phone.
And that's a good thing. I'm not mad at that
it's
at all.
been since, 4th or 5th grade. Well, all my friends have them. It's like, I ain't none of they daddies.
That's right.
What does that mean? And literally he was just but after, he said that she was upset for the first month or two, but after that, it's like, this is just how it is. So it just became her thing
what it is.
that she just didn't have a phone. And it's like, now that she has one, here's how you're going to use it. Here's what you can do. Here's what you can't do. And she can't have all the social media stuff on there because I'm not doing all the social media. Pick one. Whatever one you get, I get. And that's how we do it. And it's like, you know what?
That's it. There's a whole national campaign called Wait Until 8th, where they're trying to encourage people to wait until a kid gets to 8th grade to get a phone. Like, why isn't that viral? Like, why that would probably solve a lot of problems, as it relates to mental health and stuff like that. But you don't hear nobody talk about that. It's just like,
and then again, I don't even think, that would go a long way. But ultimately, if all the parent is going to do is just give them the phone,
right,
and leave them to their own devices,
and that's what I be telling parents. I be like, you cannot just turn this device.
They don't know the passcode. They don't know how to get in to read the messages. They don't know how to check for the hidden apps or the locked apps or the hidden photos.
I have had parents tell me, because I'm like, so she got in trouble. So you took the phone away, right? Oh, no. We would never do that. They get so angry when we take the phone. And I was like, what? I said, do you pay the bill, right? Well, yes, but she just gets so angry when we take the phone. So we just don't even want to, I don't want to. So you don't want to be a parent is what you're telling me.
Yeah, right.
You don't want to be a parent.
I grew up in a time when doors was taken off it wasn't that the door was open. The door was literally taken off the hinges.
But the idea that you wouldn't take the phone if necessary, like that, it blew my, I didn't even know what to say to that parent. I was just like, well, I mean, I don't really know what to say. I don't have any advice for that. If you can't put some rules in place in your own house, then you're already a lost cause. Like, I don't really know what to tell you.
And I'm pretty sure that's across the board with some of these parents and their kids. It's just like, I don't understand. I just cross my fingers and hope I don't get that phone call, or hope I don't see the crying because the kid has been bullied or whatever. I just cross my fingers and hope that's not me.
And then you got, and I don't want to make light of it, but there were parents when they had Mark Zuckerberg, and the last time he testified before Senate, they had the parents in there whose kids had committed suicide and everything. And I'm just like, but before it got to that point, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm not blaming the child for being bullied, but I feel like an intervention could have happened before it got to that point, on the part of the bully and on the part of the other kid, the kid being bullied. Like the parents have to get involved. You have to know what, right? Like you, and it always ends up seeming like, well, I didn't even realize they were being bullied, or I didn't know my kid was being a bully. Like, you should have access. Well, your kid, number one, if you're a jerk. But you also should be doing audits on those phones. Take that phone. I'm gonna scroll through these text messages real quick and just make sure you ain't out here reckless.
And if you do it right, you ain't even got to take the phone. Just log in on
that part.
Right.
That part. And I mean, their privacy and their freedom.
All right. You're going to be in front of Congress.
You're going to be in front of Congress. You know what I mean? Like, at this point, they don't have fully developed brains yet. So privacy and their rights don't sync up to, the impulsivity of an underdeveloped brain. You gotta, we trying to save lives here. So all that privacy stuff can wait until they have the self-control to use these platforms like they got some damn sense.
Right.
So to wrap this up, is the Stop Addictive Feeds Exploitation Act for Kids going to work? In the words of Tech Like Steph, nope.
Nope.
It's a good gesture.
No,
That's
they
about it.
tried. They
Right.
listen, and we just gonna keep throwing a bunch of shit against the wall to see what sticks, I guess, until something hopefully sticks. But at the end of the day, raise your kids better.
Yeah.
I
I
don't know
got
what
a
else to tell you.
side note. I got a son, and he's 7, and he's like, "Can I have a phone?" I'm like, "Why do you need a phone?" Because all the other kids at school got a phone. I'm like, "This
Right,
is he's going into first grade,
right.
and most of his friends have a phone." It's just
That's
like that's
insane.
bananas.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. There's nothing of first grader needs a phone for.
Mm-mm,
Nothing.
not at all.
Absolutely nothing.
So y'all, that is our show for this week. But before we get out of here, I want to do a couple of shout outs because we haven't done these in a while. But the first one, this is not a spotlight, but I do want to shout out Hattie McDaniel. For those who
Hey
don't
now.
know who Hattie McDaniel is, she is the first Black person, first African American to win an Oscar. She won for playing the role of Mammy in Gone with the Wind all the way back in 1939. Today is her birthday. So just wanted to
Shout out
shout,
to Hattie
yeah,
McDaniel.
shout her out. But also
And
we
still had to come in the back
had to come in the back. It was
to get the Oscar.
I remember talking to my grandmother about this when I was a kid. It was even a debate on whether or not they were going to even let her receive it. They were thinking that they
Mm,
should have her manager or a producer receive it on her behalf. And they
right.
decided at the last minute to let her go ahead and come in. And if you ever go and watch the video, she's very emotional in giving her speech because this is
Hmm.
like the first time in like American history that someone that looked like her was able to go into a venue like that. So that's what, yeah, she was emotional about winning the Oscar, but she was also, emotional about that. Y'all actually
Not
let me
coming through the
come in
back
here
door.
and get this,
Right.
and get this
Right.
award. So yeah, definitely want to give her a shout out. But we also have to give shout outs to our new patrons. We picked up 2 patrons
Woohoo.
over the week. So we want to shout out Inez Hill and Jordan Hester, who have both become patrons and are supporting the show. So
Thank
give
you.
y'all flowers. And for anyone else who would like to support the Tech Jawn, you can do so by becoming a patron over at patreon.com. But you could also support the show with a merch. We have all kind of t-shirts and hats and hoodies and mugs and aprons and all kind of other stuff with our logo on it. So if you'd like to get any of that, head over to thetechjawn.com/shop. And you can pick up, one of many, many, many things that we have over there. And there's a lot of different types of swag that you can get with our logo on it. And that goes a long way to support the show as well. So with that being
Yes,
said,
indeed.
Tech Life Steph, tell folks how they can get at you.
You can follow me all around the web at Tech Life Steph or check out my website at stephaniehumphrey.com.
And you can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH.
And I am at Robb Dunewood on all the things. And we're also at the Tech Jawn on all the things. So come holler at us however you holler. And until we meet again in a week's time. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.